For years gardeners like us have been told that worms are the heart of a healthy garden. We push vermicomposting, build worm bins, and toss scraps into the soil hoping the worms will multiply and transform everything into those dark, crumbly castings we treasure. But what if I told you there's a method that restores soil health even faster? A process that doesn't depend on worms at all. In fact, this trick can outperform vermicomposting in speed, nutrient availability, and microbial diversity. It may sound like a gardening myth, but it is backed by real soil science. If your garden soil is dead, compacted, or lacking life, this one shift could bring it roaring back. The big issue with worms is this: worms don't start the soil regeneration process, microbes do. When soil has low organic matter and little biological activity, worms simply avoid it. They need a thriving ecosystem already in place, and they are slow workers in the early stages of soil rebuilding. They wait until the feast is prepared. Their job is refinement, not resurrection. That means if you add kitchen scraps or manure to lifeless soil and expect worms to magically appear and fix everything, you'll likely be disappointed. Here's where our worm-free secret steps in: aerobic microbial fermentation. It's kind of a fancy name for a simple idea. Use beneficial bacteria and fungi to break down organic matter before it hits your soil. Instead of piling scraps in bins and waiting months for worms to finish their job, we create a nutrient-rich, microbe-loaded material that soils can immediately use. And the best part? You can do this anywhere. No giant compost heaps, no turning piles, no flies, and honestly, no bad smells. Microbial fermentation transforms food scraps, grass clippings, and plant waste into what scientists call bioavailable nutrients, nutrients that plants can absorb quickly without waiting for worms to process them. These microbes produce enzymes, hormones, and acids that soften tough materials like stems and leaves, making them way easier for soil to digest. By the time this fermented material reaches the ground, the soil ecosystem explodes with new life almost instantly. Worms will eventually follow, but far later in the game. When you think about it, the transformation in the soil happens so much faster than you might expect. It's honestly kind of amazing how quickly everything changes once the fermented material is added. The speed difference is remarkable. Traditional composting with worms can take 3 to 6 months depending on climate, food balance, and bin setup. Many gardeners struggle with bins that are too wet, too dry, or too acidic, slowing decomposition even more. Fermented soil foods, however, can be ready in as little as 7 to 14 days, and, the transformation in the soil begins within hours of application. Plants respond fast, leaves perk up, soil texture improves. And once biology becomes active again, nature does the rest. So you might be asking, okay, what exactly is this trick? It goes by different names around the world: Bokashi, fermented plant juice, indigenous microorganism teas, and anaerobic composting buckets. But the concept is universal. We let microbes pre-digest our waste inside a sealed container. No oxygen means no rot, no stink, and no pests. When the fermentation is done, the material is buried in shallow trenches or mixed into soil, where worms and fungi finish breaking it down. The soil stays alive even in winter, because microbial fermentation generates heat and fuel for the underground food web. A key advantage of fermentation over worms is the diversity of microbes introduced. Worm bins mainly rely on a few species of bacteria and fungi that can tolerate high moisture environments. Fermentation, however, cultivates beneficial lactic acid bacteria, yeast, and decomposers that worms alone could never supply. So, This broader microbial workforce actually improves soil structure faster, increasing drainage in clay soils and helping sandy soils hold more water. It's pretty amazing how these tiny organisms can make such a big difference, honestly. Within just a few weeks, soils show more aggregation, those little chocolate cake crumbles that healthy dirt is, famous for. There's also a powerful nutrient story here. Worm composting is phenomenal for slow-release nutrients, but, many minerals stay locked up until worms finish their digestion cycle. Fermented matter, on the other hand, contains already solubilized nutrients. Calcium, phosphorus, and potassium become immediately usable by plant roots. So, let's talk about giving your soil a real jumpstart. When we use fermentation, we're basically providing nutrients in a form that's super easy for plants and microbes to use right away. This means, the soil life gets active much quicker, and plants can start thriving sooner than usual. That's why gardeners using fermentation often report faster greening, earlier flowering, and improved drought tolerance. It's like giving the soil a jumpstart instead of waiting for biology to catch up. Of course, this isn't a war against worms. Actually, worms love fermented food. When you bury fermented scraps, worms swarm them once the soil organisms begin the finishing stage. It's synergy, Fermentation wakes the soil up, and then worms move back in to refine and stabilize it. So, instead of relying on worms to bring biology to dead soil, we send biology in first. Even better, you can do this year-round. Worm bins struggle in the cold or extreme heat, and outdoor compost piles freeze. Fermentation just ignores the season. Store scraps in airtight buckets all winter and bury them once the ground softens, or trench compost directly in grow beds, letting microbes feed beneath frost line. By spring, your garden beds have already been feasting for months. If you've ever battled dead soil, stinky compost, slow decomposition, or disappearing worms, this method changes everything. You eliminate the guesswork. The soil receives food tailored to microbial digestion, not human expectation, and yeah, plants absolutely love it. So, yes, ditch the worms at the beginning. Let microbes lead. Once the invisible workforce rebuilds the underground world, worms will return on their own, stronger, healthier, and ready to turn your good soil into great soil. Strange history. So, yes, ditch the worms at the beginning. Let microbes lead. Once the invisible workforce rebuilds the underground world, worms will return on their own, stronger, healthier, and ready to turn your good soil into great soil. So, yes, ditch the worms at the beginning. Let microbes lead. Once the invisible workforce rebuilds the underground world, worms will return on their own, stronger, healthier, and ready to turn your good soil into great soil.